I am getting all set. I had a lot of things I wanted to bring to the stream today, so I think I have everything. I got my notes. Once again, took notes last night. I did an underdrawing because I realized if I'm going to be trying to finish this in 2 hours, I really want to make sure I have kind of the harder part for me to stream and draw at the same time, which is the outlining. So hopefully that will be good to go for today. And I will actually finish it, unlike last week. Hi. Hi, Barbara. Hi, Gandor. Hi, Houdini Bob. How are you? I'm doing great. Actually, we have a convention that we leave for tomorrow. We just had one last weekend in Milwaukee, and now we have another one in Indiana. So it's a pretty crazy month. We have 3 this month and then possibly 3 next month. So yeah, very busy, but we kind of prefer it. We had 4 months of no cons through the winter. So we're kind of ready to be back and actually, doing the thing that makes us money. That way we can survive. Oh yeah, that's strange. So if the stream doesn't start with you, make sure to refresh the page, says Josh. Yeah. Like I said, I'm still new to coming back to streaming, so there's going to be some tech issues, I'm sure. We didn't have any last week, which was crazy, but we'll see if we have any today. Oh, hi, Casper. So yeah, we'll be starting shortly. I'll probably start in like another minute or two, and then we'll just keep waiting for people to join in. And if you haven't read the title already, we're going to be focusing on focus. Now, this is something that I think is sometimes very difficult for artists, or not even just for artists, just for, honestly, anyone living in the modern age and has a cell phone. So I'm going to be talking about the tips and advice I have with it. I've read 3 books kind of specifically on this, and I'll go through those books if anyone's interested throughout the stream. And yeah, hopefully I can help provide some insight on how to channel focus better. What snacks are the favorite go-tos for long con days? I don't know what the official name is. We call them pucks. Josh, you would have to figure out what the actual name of them are, but those for sure, carrots and coconut water. I feel like those are my 3 that I always bring to cons. Also, yeah, Felix, congrats on finishing your Ronnie piece. I knew that was kind of weighing on you and to get it done before the con. Oh, yes, and PB&J. Josh always makes a really nice PB&J. We get the nice Justin's, I think it's Justin's honey peanut butter or Justin's vanilla peanut butter, depending on the show we're at, as like a treat to ourselves. Okay. Candor says, I have to introduce a music video too. The actor of Evan is acting in it, and the song is also good. Oh yeah, send it to me on Discord. Speaking of, if anyone wants to join, we have a free to join Discord. The link is below. It is a community of artists and people that are looking to be inspired or get feedback on art or just share what they're working on. And I am on it pretty much every day, at least checking. And we also have monthly challenges, which is part of why I'm drawing this today. The monthly challenge this month is capturing likeness. So that is what I will be working on. Okay, I think I'm going to jump into it now and just go for it. And actually, before I forget, if you want to ask a question specifically, just put @vonnart in the comments. That way, as I'm going in between the drawing and the screen in front of me, I can quickly pick up the comment and be sure I catch it and answer it. All right, let's get into it. Hi, everyone. I'm Timothy Von Rueden, better known as Vonnart Online, and I am joining back on YouTube and doing these weekly live streams at Wednesday at our new time slot, which is 12 p.m. Central Time. I'm sure it's going to throw a lot of people off because not only did I change from 2 to 12, but we also had daylight savings time here in the States. So it might take a little bit for us to find that routine and familiarize ourselves with this new time slot. So I just want to say thank you for coming. And I wrote down, I think I want to start off all these streams on my little notes, that I always want to start like mentioning that this is a very much direct communication between myself and you guys. I want this to be an open chat, and I want to feel like it is not just me rambling for 2 hours, which I can tend to do, but I really want it to be a conversation back and forth, and for you to actually feel like you're getting something out of it rather than just me rambling. So if you haven't heard it recently, I just want to say that you are enough, you are on the right path, and you are an amazing artist as you explore whatever creative field or idea that you have. And just know, most importantly, that what you do matters. I feel like I want to start the streams off saying that because we don't hear it enough in the art world specifically. Okay, so what am I drawing while we're talking about focus? I'm going to be working on, this is a character, Nora, from a show that Josh and I watched in January called Skam. It is a Norwegian show, and it is absolutely fantastic. It is in my top 3 favorite shows of all time, specifically season 3. And I'm going to be showing you how I capture likeness, but I did the underdrawing before the stream because this is usually the hardest part for me, capturing proportions. And because I'm still coming back to streaming again, I wanted to do the hardest part off stream so that I can get the proportions as best I could, and I could really focus in and channel in on that. But now she looks like a serial killer, so now is the step that I really want to show you guys where I'm adding shading. I am really focusing on bringing her actual likeness through values out, and that is what I'll be working on. And thankfully, a lot of doing this stage is very autopilot for my brain at this point, so I don't have to heavily think about what I'm drawing. So that is what I'll be working on. And I'll be working with traditional pencils. I got my General Kimberly's. I have one mechanical pencil, and technically 2, because this Oren's 0.2 mechanical pencil is also for the small details, but I'll save this for the end. And then, as always, I got my Mono 0, complete with cat bite marks, and my kneaded eraser. So those are the tools I'll be working with as we go through this. Okay, so as I start this off, let's talk about focus. And I always like to start with a question, and I'm trying to get used to using this new question option tool that they have available for us. So I'm going to be starting with a question here. And if you want to answer it, be sure to click, I think it's on the top of the chat, and that's how you can answer it. So to start this off, especially talking about focus, I want to know how many different projects are you working on at the same time currently? And for each of these questions that I'm going to ask the chat, I am also feeling like I should also answer. So I think I have 7 that I'm working on currently at the same time. And I'm going to be talking about why this is a problem and how to fix it. So I am working on my tarot deck, my Drawtober series. I'm almost done. I have one more prompt to finish. My 5-foot Aquatica Nautica piece that's sitting upstairs, just rotting away. My swordplay novel, which I'm keeping more on the DL. And then YouTube, obviously, Patreon, and conventions. So 7 altogether. And before this, I had a lot of things cooking at the same time. And I would try to give like a half-hour increments to each. And for a while, that worked for me. And I think as I go through the stream, you'll recognize that a lot of how you're going to channel your own focus is going to be dependent on how well you know yourself. You know if you're someone that likes to create like a to-do list or a task list and follow it like that. Or you might be a feeling-based person and you can feel out, okay, today this is what I want to get done. And I'm not going to have a lot of pressure if I'm not in a good mood, I'm not in a good mindset. I'm not going to focus on like pushing it past my limit. So, and you'll see me reference my notes. That's why I got my notes here so that I can still draw and focus at the same time. But the way that I always look at how many projects you're working on at the same time is like a mental oven, like a stovetop. And we only have so many burners. If you can imagine that you have to distribute the heat evenly between all the things that you're working on, nothing will actually ever get cooked. You'll just constantly have everything on a simmer, but nothing's ready to serve. And that's how I've been looking at it, especially the most recent years. So you know the whole saying, like, you know, putting it on the back burner, I'm going to put that idea, I'm going to work that through on the back burner in my head. Well, in my mind, there's one front burner and there's maybe 3 back burners. So I think it's good to recognize, am I actually putting what I want to be a priority on the front burner, or am I putting other things on the front burner, but I'm switching it in and out with the things on the back burners that it's actually not going anywhere. And I think that's kind of important to recognize with yourself and being honest with yourself. So, as you guys are all answering here, I'm going to say I definitely got caught in the trap last year because I was trying to work on my new art book and do all these other things at the same time. And I realized I wasn't giving the time and energy that the art book needed to actually be completed, to do a Kickstarter properly. We were also trying to get married and plan all of that. And it was way too much. And like on top of it, I was still trying to do a card a month for tarot. It was way too much. I felt completely cooked myself. I was burnt out. And I realized that I needed to set priorities. And there's this one book that I find to be really good on this topic. It's called Essentialism by Greg McKeown, or McCone, however you pronounce it. This is a great book. If you feel like you have a lot on your plate and you're having a hard time distilling it down into what is quote unquote essential, then that I think is a good read for you. And it really helped me out because I realized a lot of the things that I thought were essential are actually not. Oh, Casper, horrible, horrible place to walk. So this is Casper, the black cat. He's wonderful, but he's also a little clumsy, so walking around this art station on a live stream is not the best place for him, but we'll see if he knocks anything over or not. But anyways, what was I talking about? Oh, essentialism, yeah. So the thing that I wrote down next was I had to then decide what is actually essential for me right now in this moment. What am I working on that actually needs to get done first? Last year, it was the art book. I literally put everything else on pause and nothing else mattered. This is in like early November. So I didn't finish my Drawtober series, and I knew that that was something that I wanted to finish for sure, but it just did not take priority. Nothing took priority over the art book. So all through November and most of December, the only thing that I worked on was the art book. And lo and behold, I got it done in those 2 months, even though it sucked up a lot of time and energy, but it needed a lot of time and energy to actually be completed. I think I was living in too much delusion that, I could work on it, on, an hour a day and it would just magically get done over time. But no, I had to be realistic with myself, with my expectations and my actual time and energy that needed to be spent for this book to be done. So now that we're entering the new year, my priorities shifted quite a bit. We went to Japan with our friends Dustin and Sang, or Inkwell Illustrations and Sang Lam Art, and it was wonderful. Actually, Dustin just released a video on YouTube this morning about it. You can check that out on his channel. But I went to Colorado afterwards, and when I came home, I really had a very fresh look at my career, what I want to do, and what I decided needed to be done first. So I looked at all the tasks that I had, all the things on my back burners, the thing that was actually cooking on my front burner, and I realized nothing is going to take precedent over the tarot deck. So for the next month, which was February, I really devoted a lot of my time and energy to the tarot deck. But what I realized in being so efficient with not efficient, but with the clarity that I had, I also had time to start working on my Drawtober series that I didn't finish back in October. So I was just switching out. I would finish the tarot card, and then I would finish the Drawtober piece. Tarot card, Drawtober piece. And now I'm at the point where I finished 3 cards in a month, which was unheard of a couple years ago with the tarot deck. And for Drawtober, I have 1 left, and they have been some of my best received images on social media. And I realized what I thought was essential actually wasn't at all. And this book kind of explains that if you consider yourself an essentialist, you'll realize most everything is non-essential. And it's very easy to cut those things out then because you view them as such. Oh, you know what? I'm also going to make sure. So you can still answer the question because after I get to the end of this section, I'll come back to the question and see what you guys wrote. But I also want live chat open as well so I can see what you guys are talking about. Oh, yes. And don't forget, put your answer in that Q&A. That way I can see it. Oh, yes. And Josh is our lovely mod. So Schwa, who is in the other room, is doing all that. So the next thing that I wrote is, but how do you pick which one to focus on? So for me, it was very easy. I realized I am a third of the way through this project that I started, and I really want to make some progress on it. And I can't feel comfortable starting to write and illustrate my book Swordplay if I still have the tarot deck left unfinished and like kind of working on it here and there. I'm not properly giving either respect or the time and energy that they deserve to be done right. And that's why I decided, you know what? Nothing takes precedent now besides the tarot deck. That is literally the only thing I want to work on so that I can actually move on to other projects with a head that is like clear of distractions or of something that is just lingering. So if you're in that similar spot, my friends call this analysis paralysis, where you can't decide which one is the right path to take. And it's funny, where did I write it? So I drew this tarot card last month, and this is the Seven of Cups. And the reason that I'm even bringing this up is this illustration, it has a silhouette looking at all these fantastical imaginary things in these cups that are in the clouds, and it's supposed to represent all the opportunities or all the imaginary fantastical opportunities in front of you. But instead of like picking one of the cups and going that direction, you're just left frozen in time. You are kind of paralyzed, and your head is in the clouds, hence the illustration, but you're lost in not being able to pick one because you enjoy the conceptual stage of working on something. So this card is almost actually a warning that what is truly the meaning of the card is, yes, all of these opportunities could be amazing and could lead to some awesome end goals, but the act of actually working on them and like choosing a cup and working towards those end goals is actually the goal. And too often we get so focused on outcome driven goals, where sometimes you just need to focus more on the journey itself. And the best parallel that I read was I think it was in Atomic Habits, which is the other book that I'm recommending today. It's very long, it's a little dense, and it's a little bloated, but it is a good read, especially if you are someone that is trying to build better habits for yourself on a daily basis. But anyways, the thing that they talk about is identity. So rather than being like, I want to read a book, that should not be your goal. The goal should be, I want to see myself as a reader. And there's like a mindset shift in that, because if you finish the book, then you might, put it down. You might not continue to read or continue that journey. So you need to change your mindset on how you see yourself. And part of it is just saying, or looking at it more in a way of, I am a reader. And similar to like doing art, it's not, I'm going to finish this piece. It's, I'm an artist, or I'm a storyteller, or whatever it is that you are looking to be, or how you want to identify yourself in the future. So yeah, I'm a big reader now, so I'll probably bring up books a lot in these live streams, just so you guys know. Okay, let me look at the question here. So how many projects are you guys working on? Houdini Bob, 3, 2 landscapes and a still life. Elena, I have technically 1, as I don't have a true series of anything going on. I just work on one piece at a time pretty much, but I usually know what I'm painting 2 pieces ahead. Wow, you're one of the few artists I know that really only has like one thing going at a time. And we'll talk about that as well. Carolina, around 3 to 4. That's usually what I hear more. Barbara, I'm currently working on at least 7 Lord of the Ring character drawings, 1 to 2 mermaid tarot drawings, some pin designs, and some drawings I want to improve on before printing them. And to elaborate, I have a list of priorities of when each of these projects need to be done. Still, it is a lot. It is good that you're listing out priorities, though. That's something that I don't think a lot of artists do when they look at how much is on their plate. Ella says 7 projects, I think, 1 big illustration, and then smaller things. That's definitely where I fit in. And Abrav says 2 to 3. I am not actually sure. 1 is the March one, while the main one is my fake Mon region that has been on and off for a while. Okay, so it seems like on average you guys are saying around 4, we'll say. 4 seems to be the answer for that. And I think that is actually a pretty good spot to be in, because when I think of an oven, like a burner metaphor that we're working with here, you have your front burners and your 2 back burners. So I think that should be the goal. I think 4 should be the goal. 7, I think, gets spread too thin. And I think if I'm honest with myself, I'm not giving enough to each of those projects if I'm trying to cook 7 things at the same time. And the other thing that I wrote down for this section is the scope can feel overwhelming. So, especially with bigger projects. And that can be like, okay, you want to illustrate a book. What does that look like? Well, first you have to, I guess you can approach it in many different ways. The way I would do it is I would have to write and probably illustrate at the same time, or I would write the whole thing first and then start illustrating. And that would make me feel comfortable. But the problem is starting would feel scary because I've never written a book. I don't know what that looks like. And I would find things probably to distract myself because of the fear of starting can be so great. And fear is a section that I wrote down much later in this talk, so we'll get to that specifically. But when it comes to like the scope, if you feel your project is too large to start, maybe start smaller. I feel like oftentimes we want to do like our grand, big project that we've had in our head since we were a kid, but often the scope is too large, and because of that, we never actually start it, and it's just something that we always talk about. And you don't want to be talking about a project that you don't actually work on or are not actively working on, because the more you talk about it to people, the less they'll be interested if they don't see any actual work being produced from that idea. So I've gotten a lot better at keeping my cards closer to my chest and not revealing too much besides what I'm actively working on, which is tarot and Drawtober. And that's all I need people to know I'm working on. And I guess these likeness studies as well. But besides that, not good to be oversharing. Oh, let me get my live chat back up here. Are we talking about the 7 of Cups? I want the cup with the dragon. Very few people pick the cup with the dragon. Actually, in that one, I mean, every cup is interpreted by you, whoever's, getting the reading. But the way that I'm supposed to see the dragon on my end is either the Western idea of it, which is like you slay the dragon, the beast, the thing that you want to overcome, or the Eastern look at it, which is like strength and prosperity. But when I see the dragon, to me, if someone's picking that dragon, it represents like courage. So that's an interesting, you're one of the first people that I've heard pick that cup. Elena says, well, the one piece at a time is greatly driven by a full-time job that has nothing to do with art. Well, that's true. A lot of people, their 8 hours every day is taken up by that. So when they get home, they usually only have one project that they can focus there. You know what, though? There's something to be said about that, where I had my full-time job and I was doing cons and stuff on the weekend. And I actually thought that helped because the financial security that my job gave me made it easier to take more creative risk or be a little more bold with the ideas that I had outside of my full-time job. So I'm a very silver linings type person, so I try not to see anything as like being just only negative. I feel like you can always take away something that can be applied to your actual passions or your dream. So I don't know. I try to look at that as what can I learn from this or what can I take away and apply it. Okay, so getting into the next section, I'm talking about what distractions often take priority. So now this is going to be one of those questions that I want you guys to answer honestly. So my next Q&A, what distractions often take priority? Now, distractions is a tough one because living in the modern age, there are literally countless amount of distractions around us all the time. And I honestly think distractions are the main reason that people lose focus. And I feel like this is even studied upon because of, short form media content with social media and how, the dopamine receptors take in what we're seeing on these platforms and how we're then spending our time with them. And we slowly get addicted, essentially. So if I'm going to be asking you guys this question, I have to answer honestly. Mine is definitely Instagram. And I'll go on to Instagram just to post a story or whatever it is that I needed to do, or I told myself I needed to do, and then I'll get distracted and I'll be like, oh, let me just check the search and see if there's anything interesting. And then it might be like 20 minutes. I'm like, what have I been doing? I just came here to post a story about what I'm working on, and I just lost 30 minutes of my time. And I love the idea that our time and energy is the most precious resource we have. But what I don't like is that it's often so wasted. We just throw it away all the time. And that's something that I have to like actively be aware of when I'm doing it. And I'm sure a lot of you guys feel the same. Some trick that I have taught myself is I now see it as I'm being actually tricked. So when I open up Instagram, I always think they're trying to trick you. Am I dumb enough to fall for it? And when I'm on it for a while and when I remember this mantra, I'm like, oh, they got me. I fell for it again. And then I'll like immediately log off because I'm like almost disgusted with the act of doing it. And this is more for people who don't use it responsibly. And I think I can fall into that bubble. So if you're someone that like you have no problem opening up, scrolling for 5 minutes and then putting it down, obviously they're not tricking you. You're just someone who casually uses it and it does not interrupt your day to an extent that would be harmful. So I think taking a look at distractions, the way that I look at it now are necessary distractions and non-essential ones. So necessary distractions, you might be thinking, well, what's a necessary distraction? Well, let's say your mom is in the hospital and you want to visit once a week, or your brother needs help with something like moving something, and you have the day off and you want to go help him. Or maybe it's even more something like even more critical, like it's raining and you notice the downspout on your gutter popped off. That is something you need to take care of like right now in this moment. Non-essential distractions are scrolling through social media. And I think the big one that we often, placate, or we just be like, well, we deserve this, are video games. And it's part of the reason. I mean, I talked to Josh about this. I don't play video games anymore. I see them as like an active distraction, and they're literally pulling me away from the goals I want to achieve in life. So I'll now start to see what I do as, is this furthering me, or is this literally just a distraction? There is a book that I have been recommended to read called Amusing Ourselves to Death. And it's the whole idea that a lot of us aren't actually living. We're just distracting ourselves with amusing, like either games or television, or I guess nowadays social media. And we just like tick the seconds of our lives away to something else that is just temporary amusement, and then we go to bed. And I'm trying, to be very aware of, am I allowing myself to fall into that trap? So if you also feel like that happens with you, try to be more conscious of when you either pick up your phone or start up your console or your computer. What are my intentions with this screen in front of me today? And oftentimes it's you're bored and you're looking for a way to supplement that with entertainment. And even it's hard for me, even as I draw a lot, I usually watch a movie in the background, and I'm trying to be more aware of, am I paying attention more to the movie than my drawing, or am I paying more attention to the drawing? And usually I can find that sweet medium spot where I can kind of just listen to the movie more than actually watch it, obviously. And to me, that's actually satisfying enough. But other days I'm like, you know what? I could just put on music or an audiobook, and I always feel so much better on those days than the days that I am just mindlessly listening to entertainment in the background. And that's kind of the direction I'm going with nowadays. Yes. Yeah, don't waste your time. I wrote that in all caps. Don't waste your time. It's literally the thing that is most precious to you. Ah, yes. Okay. The next part of this I wrote, are you a problem presenter or a problem solver? And excuses will come in waves. Don't feed the wolf. So the idea of this, let me ramble about this for a second. So I think the best artists that I've ever met are the best problem solvers. And this doesn't, I guess, just apply to artists necessarily. It applies to like just people in general. When you are presented with a problem in an art piece per se, like For me, this face is looking too light. That is the problem. The solution will be probably to do a pass like this on it. Let me get the side of the pencil. Where I can create a very light layer of value throughout the entire face to darken it up just a bit. And that way we can punch those highlight spots. And art making is just a series of connected problems being solved kind of in I don't want to say in sequential order, because sometimes you'll go back and change things, but it's constantly happening, and we're not even aware that we're seeing a problem and we're analyzing how to fix it, and then we're attacking it. And that is like constantly doing art. Now, the opposite of that is problem presenters. So usually you don't see this more, or you don't see this as much with the art itself, but you'll see it in life. So when someone's asking like, well, you know, you have this dream project, why aren't you working on it? You'll already have like a list of excuses that you have validated in your head as actual reasons to why it's not getting done. And sometimes they are actually valid. And sometimes it's like, yeah, my mom's sick with cancer in the hospital, and it's been very, you know, trying on me, and I don't have the energy to work on this project right now. Absolutely. But if this is something that you've been talking about for 10 years, you're telling me that there has been 10 years worth of necessary distractions that have kept you from your dream goals. And there's a, where did I write it? There is a quote that I like. Oh, did I save it? Because when I read, I also take little notes and I highlight things. But specifically on this one, I think it was in Atomic Habits. It was, without reflection, we can make excuses, create rationalizations, and lie to ourselves. And we have to redefine our identity not to be so specific. Oh no, that was for something else. But specifically, it was on, we can create an inner monologue that can justify why we're not working on the things we should be working on. And the other thing that relates to that was, it was something on fear, which I really liked. I'll have to think of it while we're talking. Oh, but actually, this quote I like too. I can do anything, but not everything. That was more of like the analysis paralysis. I like that quote too. But okay, let me look at what you guys are saying. What distractions often take your guys' priority? Brave says wasting time on social media, procrastination in general, academics simply not feeling it, things like that. Felix says YouTube, Twitter, and Reddit. The usual, but mostly the fear of starting. Once I get going, there's no stopping me. That's like a footnote. I want to come back to that because I think that is a very important point. And we'll talk about even like the motivation cycle, how it starts, blah, blah, blah. Elena says work and social media, reading, playing video games as other options for relaxing times. Ella says, burnout. When I have more energy, I will go on overdrive and work a lot on a lot of projects. When I'm fatigued, I either sleep a lot or end up doom scrolling or watching YouTube. So I like the emojis you're using here. I don't want you to guilt yourself for that either. What's that beautiful quote about I think it's, a flower doesn't bloom all year, so why should you expect yourself to? And obviously I don't think we should take 6 months of the year off. But I think it's okay to have days where you wake up and you're like, you know, I'm not feeling it. I'm not in a good mind space. I can tell that my energy is low. I'm not feeling good about myself or whatever it is. And I'm going to go ahead and take a day where I just go walk in nature, or I'm going to take a day where I'm going to clean the house, or I'm going to do other activities that don't require, you know, the brain stimulation to do an art piece. Because oftentimes that can be tiring. And I know how it can be as an artist where we guilt ourselves so much that we're not working, then we're wasting time, we're wasting our lives. Because, you know, if we're not creating something, there's going to be some other person out there that will, you know, work and grind away and, you know, surpass me. But we got to do away with that mindset. We're all in this together. We're all in the same boat. So I don't, even though that happens, I don't want you to guilt yourself if that does happen, Ella. Barbara says, I have always been an avid TV watcher, but now old school TV has been replaced by Twitch streams or YouTube videos. It doesn't help that having a big computer next to me is very tempting. Oh, this is a good one. So this is another one in Atomic Habits where they talk about if your environment can be conducive to just being a giant distraction. So it talks about like if you notice that something is a distraction for you, let's say video games, unplug your console every time you finish and literally move it into a drawer or something where the act of playing the game then, just the act of starting of like pulling it out of the drawer, replugging it back in, that is such a burden in our brain that often we won't even do it. We won't play the game because just the act alone of doing that is like, do I really want to do it? So this book talks about like constantly take action to make the distractions harder or less appealing and make the things that you do want to do, like if you genuinely reflect on what you want in life. So for me, it'd be like tarot. Obviously, have the tarot drawing on my desk, ready to go. Have the cards next to it. And that way, it's just good to work on as soon as I enter this room. And decluttering can be a big part of that. So like even within this room, before I painted and did everything to get it ready for live streaming, I cleaned out all my shelves, took out anything that I deemed non-essential or something I haven't touched in like 2 years, because it's no longer necessary for me to work with or to continue on my path with. So that was very helpful in kind of figuring out, okay, this is something that helps me on my path and this isn't something, or that it distracts me from my path. So yeah, maybe that will help. A says, hygiene and exercise. I love drawing, but sometimes I'm almost itching for physical/outdoor activity or something to make me feel physically present. I don't think that's actually a distraction. I think that can be actually helpful. They say that exercise, or at least walking half hour a day, can actually improve not only our moods, but our body's capability to not be fatigued during the day. So weirdly, I actually think that's a good thing. I think this is like a positive habit. And that's what the Atomic Habits book talks about, is you have positive habits and negative habits. So a positive one is, taking a walk every day or brushing your teeth before you go to bed. Things like that. A negative habit would be checking your phone before bed. The ones that seem obvious when you're thinking about it, and yet we still do them. So kind of going back to what you were saying, Barbara, another thing that I try to do when I can is I'll charge my phone in this room, not in my bedroom. That way, when I wake up, I'm not tempted to look at my phone and check the updates or check how my story did on social media, because that is a negative habit that I need to not only be aware of, but then take an active approach to making sure that I don't fall into that trap so easily in the future. All right, what's next here? Candor says, mostly sleep. Instagram is a bit of a distraction some days. Reading is a big thing as well, but honestly, I oftentimes have to choose what I want to do, draw or read. Game, mostly don't have time for all. Yes, I think that's a good point to make as well. When you look at your time on a day-to-day basis, we do not have time to do all the things that we want. And we do have to make decisions. And I'm not saying that you should give up video games forever. I think there is something to be said about, enjoying life, and there's more to life than just our output and what our work is. But I think if you do have these ambitions or you have these goals, you also have to take a more critical, honest look of, am I actually working on these? Am I actively pursuing them? Or am I just thinking about them and I'm just talking about them? And that can be a scary place to be in, because you think you're doing a lot of mental work, and you're like, oh, I'm getting so much done because I'm thinking about it, I'm improving it, but doing so much work, but because there's no actual showing of it, it's more of like a fun escape. I have to be honest with myself too, of this book that I want to illustrate. It's really fun thinking about it, and I can tell people about it, but the more you do that, the more you feel the sense of completion from not doing anything. So that's why I'm trying to be better at not talking about it as much anymore. And I'll start sharing it when I actually have the work to show a case for it. Carolina says, I've been heavily dependent on listening to videos while I draw. I can't focus if there isn't something playing. The negative side to that is I'll start watching the video. Yep, I'm right there with you. I feel that very hard. I think that's why I always feel best about myself when it's either music or an audiobook. And I know this about myself too. But because it's not as appealing as like throwing a movie on in the background or um, some kind of YouTube video, whatever it is, I'll end up doing those even though I know deep down I I want to be doing the other things. So part of creating focus is being a little more critical with how you spend your time and analyzing, is this actually benefiting me, or am I just falling into the amusing myself for temporary pleasure? And I think that is a scary place to be in if you notice that you're constantly doing that, because you're there's so many studies out there about our dopamine and the receptors in our brain and everything about how our attention span is just going down, 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 down. So the more that you're filling it with what I call junk food media, the more that that's what you're going to be craving, kind of like a sugar rush. And yeah, the carrots, the spinach, arugula aren't as appealing type of content, but those are the ones we probably should be eating for long-term benefits. And I think there's so much in our culture that is focused on short-term gain that we're not focused on long-term benefits as much anymore. But let me get back to that. I'll keep going on your question or your answers here. 6X says, looking for too many references, not going for one main idea because I have trouble establishing a focus on what I truly feel drawn to versus what I should make, what is appealing. Yes, I think that this is analysis paralysis. We have one friend, I'll make up a name, I'll say Helen because I don't want to call anyone out, where they are like a sponge. They love inputting all these different ideas and references, and they check Pinterest all the time, and they're just scoping out the most unique visuals that they possibly can. The problem with this is then the idea of outputting is so limiting because you're more engaged in what gave you more pleasure is just seeking inspiration. And that's kind of what the tarot card that I showed is also about, is you got to be careful that you're not just seeking inspiration constantly, because you get into that trap of thinking, oh, once I'm inspired enough, I'll start working. Actually, let me pull up a Post-it note. This is the trap that I was taught. And I don't know if this will connect with you guys, but if it does, I think this helps a lot. Okay. So we'll say motivation. You know what? We'll say inspiration as well. Taking action. And results. The way that we look at these three, we often think this is number one, so one, and then once I'm motivated or inspired enough, I'll start. 2, taking action, which will lead to 3, results. But what I was taught is it's not this cycle at all, and the way that our brain chemistry works and how the dopamine receptors work is actually taking action should be first. And it actually goes the opposite. It goes counterclockwise. Because taking action while you're working on it, you'll feel inspired. And especially if you start seeing results, you'll be motivated to then, or I guess this is still the same number. I don't know why I crossed out 3. You'll get results. And oftentimes when we see results being praised or received positively, either by our inner circle, the social media outer circle, oftentimes that results in us taking action again. So this is the spiral. So it's the same spiral. The only difference is where 1, 2, and 3 are. So try not to get too trapped in being like, oh, I have to do this first. It's taking action. That's the first step. And then you get inspired and motivated. Okay. Well, thank you guys for answering that one. Does this just take me back to the main chat? Oh, it does. Okay, beautiful. Oh, Ivy's here. Hi, Ivy. Ivy Alive is a fantastic artist that we met kind of last year mostly. Like, we know we ran into each other in passing at cons, but last year we got to know each other better. And Ivy will be here at the workshop in the summer that I am a part of. And I think you should check out her work. It is very, very, very incredible. And it's always fun to see what you're working on next. So thank you, Ivy, for joining in. Okay. Let's see. What was my next thing I have here? Okay. we're going to get into the next section of this chat, and I'm going to start with a little bit more of a personal question. So if you don't feel comfortable answering, you don't have to. But I'm going to say, or I'm going to write it here, is what are you afraid of to just go for it? All right, start Q&A. Oh, and hi, Tijal. I know I think daylight savings is throwing a lot of people off, but hopefully we'll get more comfortable as the weeks go on. Oh, Ivy, you're doing a local pottery. You know what? That's okay. You will be here in our hearts, and we'll think of you, especially when we're having our hot tub talk with all the people that are coming over. Oh, can I switch between the Q and... Oh, how do I go back to this? There we go. So I can't just ask you guys, what are you afraid of, to just go for it without answering myself. I think where I'm at right now and the position I'm in is, I think I have a level of expectation that I set on myself because of my past experiences, where I'm at with social media. And I think deep down, there's a part of me that is afraid that I won't hit the expectations that I believe people have for me. Obviously, I've done a lot of inner work to realize I am setting those expectations and I'm blaming other people because it's easier. And you can always justify pushing back, actually working on the project, because it's like a delayed failure. Because I would rather not try now and justify all these reasons, XYZ, why I'm not doing it, than to actually be vulnerable, put myself out there, and be judged or ridiculed, or be like, oh, he does good art, but man, he's really bad at storytelling, and it shows in this certain project. So I would say mine is that I won't hit expectations. That is my fear when I think of a project that is my dream project, and that's why I'm not going for it. Oh, and then the other thing I wrote is, often you might think that you'll look foolish, bad at art, or arrogant. And I think sometimes that prevents us from posting it all. But obviously, this is something you have to get over. Easier said than done. But I think you have to be kinder to yourself. And this is a whole thing, and I'm going to have more of it in April, because I think this is going to be the April challenge on our Discord. But you have to do it for your inner child. Also, I got to keep drawing more. We're like almost an hour in, and I'm looking at my drawing like, oh my God, I just keep yapping. I really should maybe do some of these streams where, if we're talking about a more in-depth topic like this, I should just do like a PowerPoint presentation style of doing this, like a YouTube TED Talk in a way, because I think sometimes trying to draw, look at my notes, answer questions, and do all this, especially when it's a topic that is something I really want to explore more than just like a surface level way of doing it. Yeah, it can be a little much, we'll say. But anyways, what were I on here? Oh, yes, that's what I want to talk about. You have to do it for your inner child or your teenager self, or just who you are at this moment today. First and foremost, no one else matters more than that. And that has given me a lot of motivation in terms of choosing what I create and how I create it, or what I post. And I think sometimes we get too caught up into, will this drawing perform well? Am I getting the right engagement? Am I creating subject matter that is appealing on a demographic scale that is conducive to growth on Instagram, or whatever our reasonings are? But I think we often get lost in, what do I want to create for myself? And I keep a picture of my baby self on my Cintiq. So here's little baby Tim. And I think about, would this be something he would be proud of? Or even going into like my early teenage years, is this something that would help him on his path? Or is this a story that he would hear and be like inspired by? And that has really helped me find not only my voice, but direction and decision making. So I always recommend, especially with all my art friends nowadays, I tell them, put a photo of your younger self on your desk. I'm not kidding. Who cares if people think you're selfish or self-absorbed when they come to your place? if you explain to them the reason why, I think they'll be understanding. But it's just that constant reminder. And it kind of is a nice way of being like, go for it, because your younger self's not going to judge you for creating a passion project that you're both internally super excited about. If anything, they'd probably judge you for doing work that you are just trying to cater to an algorithm or whatever it is. They would look at you and be like, huh, is that what we're doing? So that's our whole life is being built up to cater to an Instagram algorithm. And I've definitely been caught in that trap. I'm calling myself out with this. And yeah, I have definitely been disappointed in myself with those kind of actions. And sometimes it was happening subconsciously, to be honest. But when I'm aware of it, yeah, it doesn't feel great. And it's like, this doesn't feel like what art should be made for. And thankfully, I kind of threw that mindset away a few years ago. And now I'm just doing whatever the heck I want. And it's been feeling so much better. I'll let a few of you more answer. And then, oh, yeah, you guys got some good answers here. I'll let that keep going for a little bit. What's the next thing I wrote down? Oh, okay. This leads into what could be worse is this could be your inner circle of people that you surround yourself with or your environment. And it's not conducive for growth. And if anything, it becomes a distraction and it becomes isolating and it becomes fear-based. So be aware of who you're surrounding yourself with. There's something that this person told me that it is like an invisible peer pressure that pulls us in their direction. And you got to be careful with that. I know I've definitely got caught with that a few times in my life. And recently it's been so much better. I think because I'm a lot more specific with who I'm giving my time and energy towards. And I feel the payback and I feel the reciprocation in that friendship. And I'm like, okay, yeah, this is better. I like this. And I know I mentioned this last week with confidence. They're the confidence stream. But part of it is when you achieve something that you're proud of and you want to show it to people, who do you show it to who won't judge you for being selfish or arrogant or gloating? Those are often the people you want to keep close. And you also have to reciprocate that when they finish something. I love having people that I feel like I can hype up when they finish something or if they have an idea and they're actively working towards it. It is like the best feeling for me in the world to be like, oh man, yeah, this looks great. Can you tell me more about it? Or like, what are we doing here? Or like, oh, it's like whatever it is. Like one of our friends, her name I can actually say, Corinna, because she came over a few weeks ago and she was definitely in a slump. We're in the Midwest, so we're having those seasonal depression modes with certain people. And she was definitely in the thick of it. And she quit her full-time job last year to make art, like really go for it and try to make this her sustainable income. She is a sculptor by trade, and she was just having a hard time figuring out what to do next because she feels like a lot of what she's doing is just restocking all the time. Anyways, we had a tarot reading, and she had one that was very, I don't want to say negative, but it was definitely slated more on the, you are not being honest with yourself. You are not working towards your goals. You are letting outside factors interfere with your passions. It was like that kind of a reading. And she realized if I want to actually achieve the goals in life, I have to put in the work and I have to stop kidding myself and delaying what I know needs to be done. That was I think there were 2 or 3 cards that was like, you're delaying what you know needs to be done in this moment. So she went home. She started working on light switches, like the ones, the covers that are on light switches usually. She made like these really cool mushroom ones. Josh, I don't know if you can link it in the chat if people want to see it, but she sculpted them in monster clay. She made a mold of it. She poured, I think, 25 or 30 resin versions of it for the con we were just at last weekend. So she was staying with us, and they all sold out. And she was like, oh my gosh, I knew that practical art was the way or the direction I wanted to go, but I was just delaying the process because I think I was in this fear of consuming my thoughts were consuming me with what could go wrong. I'm not making enough money. And she was allowing doubt to just seep in. And it's that whole story of what wolf do you feed? There's two wolves in everyone's heads. I think it's doubt and confidence, or however the story goes. But whichever one you feed is the one that grows. So she was just feeding the wrong wolf. And then she started feeding the other one, and she went to this con, sold out, and all of a sudden, her path is on a much different path. She's no longer in that self-doubt mindset, and she's not talking to herself in such a negative way. And actually, once again, talking about our motivation circle, she took action, and that's what motivated or inspired her to finish it. She found results. Well, guess what? She's now making another one. She's realizing, yeah, that was the right idea. I had that intuition feeling, and now I'm going to explore that and really go for it even further. Okay. I know. I keep looking at my drawing being like, oh my gosh, Tim, I really should do a stream that isn't focused on these larger topics if I want to do like a drawing one. But you know what? I'm committing to this. I feel like this is something I can do. I just got to remember to keep the pencil on the paper and not lift my head so much. So let's see. What was the next thing I wanted to write? Yeah, so surround yourself with nurturing friendships that are on similar wavelengths or journeys. So what that means is you can always tell, like, where I'm at in my career right now is different than where I was 10 years ago. And the people that I wanted to surround myself 10 years ago, I wanted to surround myself with people that were experiencing that same level of stress or that same level of, I don't know what to do, here's where I'm at. And the more that you do that, you kind of grow together, and it becomes this like fun, beautiful journey. And you do have to kind of put yourself out there. I mean, talking about adult friendships and the Let Them theory by Mel Robbins that I'm obsessed with, is you have to take a very active part in finding those people. But that could be a whole nother stream in itself. But essentially, when you surround yourself with those people, all of a sudden, staying focused on your goals, you have people that can not only hold you accountable, but they're encouraging. They're people that want to see these projects be fulfilled. And when you have these level of hype men around you and you can hype them back, it just creates this beautiful symbiosis of you're just excited for each other's passions to then manifest in either a book or a board game, or in this case, like a light switch cover. And I think that can be so helpful to staying motivated, because then you feel like you have this army of support that is like pushing you further. And whenever you're feeling down or you have self-doubt, you can have a friend's voice in your head. Or maybe some of you that are listening today, maybe you could even use my voice if you just need someone to be like, you got it. Like, don't let self-doubt win. Don't feed that wolf. Take action first. You got to remember that's how you actually get motivated, is you got to take action first. And oftentimes this is what happens when I stream of consciousness thoughts, and like I have too many and then I'm trying to like spitfire them. But let me calm down, take a second. I was on a call with Audrey and Babs yesterday, both phenomenal artists, but Audrey had a really good point about using your inner or replacing inner voices. And she was saying oftentimes when we isolate ourselves too much, our inner voice can be really self-deprecating, and it can be very critical to the point where we can talk ourselves out of something. And I've always heard the saying of like, instead of talking yourself out of something, try talking yourself into doing something. And I like that expression a lot. But the way that she was explaining it, she was saying, oftentimes you can supplement someone else's inner voice that can play in your head as if they're right there with you. So for me, recently it's been Mel Robbins. And she's just been saying like, yeah, keep working on that project. Today's the day. Why not do it today? Like just go for it. Just do it. And on the days where I'm not feeling specifically motivated myself and I'm just kind of grudging through, sometimes I'll just have her voice or one of my friends' voice, like Audrey or Babs. And I just remember how, excited they were about whatever new tarot card I'm working on. Or when I told them about coming back to YouTube streams, they were asking me a lot of questions about it. I'm like, yeah, like I have the encouragement, like you just got to pick yourself up, Tim, like, let's go, you can do it. And that shift in mindset can be so critical to actually getting work done. So the more that you surround yourself with people that can be that for you in your life, and then you can be that for them in their life, can be just incredibly helpful. Let's see, I got 2 more points and then I'll read your guys' questions here, or your answers here. Okay, so sometimes when you surround yourself with too many people, and maybe some of these people are, they lean into the drama of it all, or a little bit of chaos. Sometimes that'll just naturally happen, even with the people that you are closest with. There'll be some crossroads where you're going to have to work on your friendship, or they're going through something and you got to give more of your time to help them through it. Maybe they're, their dog is sick and they just need an ear to listen about it, or whatever it is. And that's how friendships should be. It's a give and take relationship, but it's symbiotic. And at some point, if you notice that you are giving like 90% of your energy to a person over a span of like a year, and they're only giving 10% back, and whenever one crisis ends, there's a new one that pops up, and then just kind of keeps happening. At some point, you're like, I am giving a lot of my time and energy away, and this is no longer fulfilling me in a way, or like serving me in a way that friendship should, where it feels like give and take. I'm just give. And oftentimes this can happen with long-term friendships, or like family members even, sadly. And you feel this obligation because you're so familiar with them. And rather than cutting it off when you know you should, you just keep with it because you're like, well, I've known them for so long. And all of a sudden the laundry list of excuses come through. But at some point, and I've had to do this the last few months here, is you have to recognize, am I actually benefiting from this friendship? Or is this something that is actually taking time away? Or is it adding unnecessary stress in my life? And if it is just a continuous thing where you don't see the cycle breaking with this person, it's not that they're a bad person. It's just that you guys aren't vibing. You're not meant to gel together, and that's okay. But you have to prioritize your needs first before you help other people. And I think as artists, we are sometimes very sensitive people by nature, and we want to empathize. We want to sympathize with other people, and we want to be there. But oftentimes we're sacrificing our needs, and then we feel hollow or isolated or not motivated because a lot of our time and energy and love is being given away too much. So I would just be aware of who you're surrounding yourself with, and are they actually conducive to your goals and desires in the same way that like a hype friend would be. And then the last thing I wrote down was, it could lead to comparing and wanting to impress others over impressing yourself. So sometimes if you surround yourself with what you think are the right people, but you noticed you're more concerned with, is this what I'm creating something that impresses them? That could be a problem. And honestly, that could be something you have to work on yourself, where you're like, am I doing my art for the wrong reasons? Am I doing it for the wrong people? So that's less on them, and that's kind of more of a you problem. Okay, let's read through. What are you afraid of? Oh, there's a lot of them here. Oh no, it won't let me scroll to the top. Wait, how do I get rid of this? Oh, Josh, you might have to read me the first one. It's being covered by the question bar. I don't know why it's doing that. Okay, Elena says, going for it for me would mean trying to make more money off art or giving it time. I'm afraid that that'll either lead to not being able to pay my mortgage or burnout. So in this case, I would recommend still keeping your full-time job and then having a safety net built up on the back end while you're working on this project, whenever you have the energy or the time to do so. I know when I had my full-time job teaching, I would do conventions on the weekend, and I was in my mid-20s, so yeah, I had all the energy in the world. But after, I think, 3 or 4 years, I realized, man, having to work a 9 to 5 from Monday to Thursday, and then Thursday night leave or fly to a convention, set up either that night or in the morning Friday, work a 3-day con, Friday night or Sunday night, pack it all up, fly all back, wake up the next morning, and then have my 9 to 5 again. It was starting to kill me physically. And I didn't recognize it at the time because I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so much fun. I'm loving it. I get to make money making art and blah, blah, blah. But then sometimes you're like, okay, wait, no, I'm not taking care of myself physically. Yeah, I might get more financial benefits, or I might see my friends more, or whatever the benefits are. But I realized, okay, I'm going to have to eventually make a choice between doing conventions and my full-time job. But I didn't just quit outright. I gave it, I think, a total of 7 or 6 years, I believe. So I just kept saving money on the back end, and I was creating essentially a safety net for when I did eventually leave the full-time job. I had almost a half a year's worth of like mortgage payments ready to go. I knew that I had a stockpile enough where, okay, even if cons are a little slower out the gate, I know I have the safety net built up. And I think that's the way you should do it. I don't like the advice that sometimes I hear where people are like, just quit your job, follow your dreams, blah, blah. It's like, yeah, you can say that because it's easier for, whatever position you're in now. Like, yeah, for me saying that to anyone, be like, yeah, you should follow your dreams, I did it. It's like, well, no, there's a lot of stipulations and there's a lot of context to that. And I think it's better to build up to it and give yourself that safety net rather than just going for it. And then that could really create a burnout. And then maybe you burned a bridge with your previous employer and then becomes harder to find a job if the con or whatever path you wanted to take doesn't work out. So you do have to be, aware of those things as well. So I do understand what you're saying with that. But I actually think you're in a decent position where you can work on your passion without there being the pressure of it needing to succeed in that moment. A says, failure. I'm a brutal perfectionist with myself and anything I create. If I never finish, it stays a whip or it's an excuse in its imperfection. I'm scared of people associating things I deem lesser with me. Oh, this reminds me very much of the friend I was talking about. Like I said, pseudo name, we're going to say Helen. She is in that same boat where if she feels like she's putting her foot or she's opening the door and like announcing her work and putting it out there for everyone to see, because she's now getting older, she feels like there's a level of expectation because the quality that I think I'm able to hit might be like a college student or like right out of college, but I'm in my 30s now. So I think it'll look almost silly, or people might judge it as being like, why is she trying to do this so late in life? And I hate this for our friend. I genuinely hate this because I think they're so good. They have such good ideas and inspiration. So this is like one of the hardest fears to overcome. And I could probably do a whole stream with you guys just on like overcoming fears. But for now, I'll just say I have learned that I don't want to just throw a quote out there like it's better finished than perfect, or it's better done than perfect is the one that we hear a lot as artists, or at least I did when I was in college. But I really need you to see that the act of working or like creating, whatever that looks like to you, that to me is the actual goal, or not goal, but the actual point of being an artist. And I know it's so easy to get so wrapped up into the end results of something, but the way that I look at it is if you are going for it and you're trying to express yourself and what you want to do in like whatever medium you're trying to do, that to me is the beautiful, most confident thing you do. If we want to tie this to last week's stream, confidence is action, and you just being willing to try is confidence. So I'm hoping that you can slowly replace the failure, or like I'm afraid of failure, or I don't want to finish something because it's not perfect, with the idea that as long as I'm giving it my best shot, and when I look at the piece, I'm happy with the progress I'm making, and even if I can maybe see some of the imperfections a couple months later, I put it out there in the world while I was working on that, and that's where all my energy was at that time. I can look at it, I can be happy and know that I can grow from it, especially if I'm seeing what could be improved on in the future. I see that more as a positive. So this might be a difficult hurdle to get over, but I promise you, you can do it. Barbara says, feel a failure. Oh, yeah, I feel like we'll get a few of those. Sadly, not just art, and I'm feeling that I can never actually realize what I see so clearly in my head. Feeling limited, deer in headlights attitude equals not moving forward or back. Barbara, you are an amazing artist, first and foremost. I think you need to remind yourself of that if you're not telling yourself that enough. You definitely can realize what you see so clearly in your head. I feel like a lot of the times with some artists, their technical ability isn't there yet, so that's why they're not able to create what they want in their head. But you are there. You have the technical backing to create these beautiful imagery. And man, the fear of failure, I want to like pull that away and out of your brain so hard, because in my mind, you're already succeeding. In my mind, you're already like a success story. Yeah, maybe you're not seeing it because you're not seeing like the monetary return, but I hate that we always associate either money or social media follower counts as making it. In my mind, you're creating beautiful works that you are proud of, and that are like, I don't want to say cherished by you, but I can tell in the art that you're creating, it's something that it's meaningful to you. And just putting that out in the world, that's what actual successful artists look like in my mind. So just know, you are a success already in my mind. I'm just hoping eventually you'll be able to see that as well. Carolina says, family trauma that led me to believe I am worthless as an artist. It's only in recent years that I've started to do somewhat believe in myself. I did reopen my online shop, so that's something. Oh my gosh, this, if your closest family members can't be your support system, it creates such a harder path to have to go down. And I know I mentioned this last week, but I hope that you guys can recognize, if any of you here listening had supportive and loving parents, that is winning the lottery. And I'm going to say this a lot on the streams because I feel like I won the lottery. We weren't rich growing up, but you know what? I could call them right now. They would help me out if I needed anything, really. And imagine when you're born being like, hey, would you rather be born into a super wealthy family, or would you rather buy and maybe that family is not supportive, or they're gone a lot, or they don't care about you, or they make you feel less than? Or would you rather a family that's not very rich, but they will be there for you your entire life until they die? They will support you. They will encourage you. It's like a no-brainer to me. So hearing that you have a family that wasn't supportive, I am so sorry. And that is not fair to you. That's not fair to your younger self. And that's not fair to even who you are today. Because I think a lot of that carries over. And sometimes if your family's feeding the self-doubt wolf, well, by the time you are an adult and you can kind of realize for yourself, oh, they are also human, and they're, they have their own fallacies and they tried their best, whatever. I feel like you had a harder start, but I'm glad to see that sounds like you are recognizing, you know what, I might not have been given the best hand in life, but I'm doing the most with what I have, and I'm going to keep playing the game, and I will get better at it. So I just want you to know that seeing your strength or hearing about it, and that you are acting almost in contradiction to what your family has told you, to me, that's real bravery. That's courage. And I want the best for you. Obviously, I'm just doing this live stream and doing this through a screen, but I just want you to know, like, that is actually really cool. And I want you to recognize that in yourself. Ella says, I'm scared I'll succeed. Oh, the opposite. Although I'm not deserving of it, or that I've taken on too much that I can chew and will end up disappointing others. Ella, you are deserving of it. Everyone's deserving of it. You cannot take up too much space in the art world. There's space for everyone. And you are such a good artist. You blend colors so beautifully. Whenever I see you post something new online, I'm like, man, Ella just keeps getting better and better. And I'm seeing the trajectory of where you're going. I'm like, she's going to kill it. So I'm excited to see what projects you have in store. And being scared of success. Okay. This is something that I can definitely share. One of my best friends, Sean Price, Art of Price Online, he also has a fear of success, and he talks about this often. And I know he'll be comfortable with me sharing his name specifically because we talk about this a lot. There is something that artists like to associate themselves with, and I call it the underdog syndrome. We don't want to be the main player. We don't want to be the one with expectations. Because even think about like sports. Most people root for the underdog. They don't want to root for the team that's won 2 or 3 years in a row. They want to see someone new come in and like take down the main boss or whatever it is. And when it comes to art, I think as soon as you pass the threshold from being seen as the underdog to being seen as like someone who should succeed, there's a pressure associated with that. And I know for Sean, he wants to feel relatable to artists that are just getting started. And unfortunately, you hit a threshold where, if you're making 8 to 10K at a lot of shows, or you're seeing a lot of success with social media, people will no longer view you as just starting out or the underdog. Even if that's how you want to see yourself, people will project an image of you. And I think I know I would rather be seen as the underdog, but unfortunately, I think especially because I've been doing cons for 10 years or social media, I'm almost at 500,000. There's this weird feeling of he should succeed. Or, well, that's Tim. Of course he's going to do it. And that's not a fun expectation. That's not a fun label to be on or to have for yourself. And I would much rather be seen as like, oh, wow, he's really like trying to make it in the world. Like, let's root for him. But instead, it sometimes feels like, and mind you, a lot of this is self-inflicted. So I'm not saying people are actually doing this. But I think sometimes, especially in 2022, I was like, I think people want to see me fail. I think because when you see someone succeed for a certain amount of years over time, they almost are like waiting for the downfall. It's kind of like how we see celebrity culture to some degree. Like we build them up and then we wait for the downfall just so that they can have that comeback moment. And obviously that's not healthy. That's not something we should encourage. So I fully know what you mean by like the fear of success, because then there's that level of expectation. So to bring it back, I just want you to know I have found so much joy in the success part of art, and that has nothing to do with monetary or with social status. I have found so much joy in connecting with other people and having my art feel validated and connecting to other people that are on their own journeys or have gone through similar things. And my art has just been a way for them to feel seen or heard. That to me is success. And I promise it's so worth it that it's not something to be scared of. It's something that we should work towards, because it's this beautiful way of connecting with other people. Barbara also says, another point for me to not just go on a career as an artist, what if it becomes a job that I don't love anymore? What if you need to create while struggling with art block again? Big worry for me. This is a tough one. I think for me to give you feedback on it, because all I've ever known is art, and that's the only thing I've ever really wanted to do. Like maybe be a biologist for a little bit in high school, or maybe be a fashion designer. Those are like my three outlooks that I saw for myself. But I always liked being creative and whatever that looked like. So I think, like, let's say art is your job. Well, what about it made it your job? Is it being creative? Me and Josh talk about this, where artists aren't the only people that are creative. I look at everyone as being a creative person, but oftentimes it only gets associated with creative type jobs. But very often, I feel like a lot of people that are not creative, like my brother, or not in a creative field, he's in construction, but he's one of the most creative people I know. He's an excellent problem solver, and if he needs to figure out how do I build, like he built this indoor golf simulator in his basement, that's problem solving. And like what you were saying earlier, the best artists are also the best problem solvers. So being in a field where you can be creatively using your mind to find solutions, I think whether that's art or whether that's another field, if that's what gives you joy, I don't think you should limit it to what if I don't enjoy art anymore. You'll find something that like triggers that good feeling from a creative job, regardless of if it's making art. You know, it could be something different. But I think you don't need to worry about the future in those kind of instances, because future Barbara, she'll figure it out. She'll know what's best for her. And I think the more that we think about that of, yeah, when we get into situations that might not be pleasurable or frustrating, if we're building ourselves up where we can handle anything that's thrown at us, it's just how we react to it. I mean, we always hear that, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it. But if you really genuinely build yourself up to be like, yeah, I can handle anything that's thrown at me, I'll be fine. And that's what I keep thinking about, because like Josh and I are in a financial pickle right now. And yeah, I have moments where I'll look at our credit cards or whatever is happening financially, and I'll get into like this panic and I'll stress out about it. But then when I really sit down and think about it, I'm like, no, we're fine. And if it's something I can't change in the moment right now, then I'm not going to let it stress me out. I'm going to let future Tim handle it, because I trust that my future self will be able to handle it. But currently what I can change is, yeah, let's set a budget. Let's make sure that we're planning for the future in a way that supports our goal. And if our goal is to get out of debt, well, then our goal should be aggressively attacking our main debt and then going from there. So I really do believe in not worrying about the future, because all we have is the present, and all you can do is like set a good path for you to go down. But where that destination isn't up to us. The path that we're creating is. So just know you're building a very beautiful path, and I wouldn't worry so much about your destination. Kendor says, not about the afraid part, but about the surrounding. I have an amazing friend who's always has my back and hypes me up. They are super supportive in the most generous way I've ever experienced with my art. Oh, yeah, you're saying one of the best things you can have. And yes, I agree. When you find your people and you genuinely feel that sense of, oh my God, is this what actual support feels like? Um, that can do so much in terms of keeping you motivated or making you feel like what you do matters. So I really genuinely encourage, if you don't feel like you have that currently, try to take an active part in trying to find those people out there in the world. Now, obviously, we have a Discord that you can try to find some people, but I think it might even be you going to conventions, going to more Discord forums where you can find people that are interested in the same interest. Whatever that looks like for you, just being more active in it. Sometimes it could be even like a proximity thing, like maybe going to a cafe or going to a life drawing session, for instance. And if you see someone that like their art you like really resonate with and you can just tell they have a vibe that attracts you in some way, like go say hi to them. Just see like, what are you working on? Or like, here's my art. Like, what's yours? Like just start that conversation up. Don't expect them to come to you. And I think that obviously very much easier said than done. And especially because a lot of us are very shy. We're introverted. We're artists. I know how difficult that can be. But sometimes what I like to do is I almost imagine I put on a different hat of like, okay, this is Tim's extroverted, socializing butterfly hat, and I'm gonna go up and talk to this person because that's the hat, and I'm like not a different person, but a different side of me that I'm like actively engaging with to come out in this moment. So maybe that'll help. And lastly, Dark Lady of Lullaby says, how do you go about fixing proportions in a face you've drawn when it's a problem you can't quite put your finger on, even with a flipped canvas? If I can recognize it, one, I'll change it right then and there. I've realized over the years, no amount of beautiful shading and rendering can fix bad proportions or anatomy. You just gotta fix it in that moment, or else it'll always look a little off to you. And then you're building good habits, because then whenever you see bad proportions in the future, you're gonna try to fix it right away, and you're not just gonna like let it linger. So yeah, just deal with it right away. If you can't see it, like for this drawing and for a lot of my likeness ones, I'll literally take a picture with my phone, especially if you're a traditional artist, upload it into Photoshop, overlap it with the original drawing, and be like, oh wow, okay, her nose is definitely way too long here. I was perceiving it wrong in the reference. And then I'll go back to my drawing and literally be like, okay, this nose too long. I'm gonna shorten it here. And that's how I would do it. So you can't just rely on flipping a canvas. Or if you're not using reference, flipping the canvas usually can point it out. I would say like 9 times out of 10, flipping the canvas usually points out where the problem area is. But if that's still not finding it for you or navigating where the problem is, ask your friends. I have my art friends that I'll share it with me, like, something's off. Can you guys help me here? And they'll be like, oh, Tim, that left eye, it's a little higher than where it should be, and it's throwing off the composition. It's not even the nose, or it's not the jawline. It's literally that eye is too high up, and it's pulling the rest of the face. So sometimes getting external feedback can be crucial. There have been times where I've asked my mom, or not even asked her. I feel like she sometimes gives me her opinion unwarranted or unasked. But honestly, sometimes she's dead on, and I'm like, man, that actually was really good advice. Like, thank you for that insight, because I didn't recognize that. So just ask other people, especially on Discord forums where there is like looking for critique or whatever the platform is. Obviously, we have one on our Discord, but there's plenty of other art Discords that offer the same thing, and those can give you some feedback as well. Okay, I'm going to end that question. And thank you guys for answering, to all those who have been. Oh boy, yeah, I'm missing a lot of comments. I am so sorry. Let's see here. Barbara says, thank you for your incredibly kind and encouraging words. I'm crying now. Logically, I know it's true, but erasing that doubt and feeling is so second nature to me. I hate it. I'm telling you, the reason I got back into streaming is to like be that art mentor, that art dad that I keep getting labeled at cons. So like, even though I know you're older than me, it's like, sometimes though, it's like I'm speaking to your inner child, and sometimes they need to be told that they're enough or they're worth it or what you're doing is correct. Because like, yeah, our bodies age, but like those feelings we still have, we carry with us all our life. And if you're not feeling confident, yeah, it's really easy to revert back into, oh, I'm not good enough, or those stories that we tell ourselves. And the more we do it, the more that they feel true. They like resonate with our identity, which can be a problem. So I have no time or no problem telling you this because I've seen your work. I know your passion. I know how you work, and you've got it. You just got to see that more in yourself. Okay. Man, I realized we only have a half hour left and I still have half a page of notes. I I think we're going to change something moving forward where I think I'm going to have streams that are specifically on drawing and streams that are specifically on topics like this, because I am noticing I am jumping way too much for this to be a streamline type stream where it feels more properly organized. And even though I had my notes and everything, I get sidetracked with other things, or I'll look at my drawing and be like, oh, that's right, I got to focus on this. But then that takes me away from my focus on what we're talking about. So I don't know what change I'll make, but we'll do something where I'll have streams that are specifically on motivational style streams, like the one we're talking about today, or ones that are specifically on drawing. Because I could have probably done a stream just on how to draw this face and gone way faster and given way more tips on that specifically. But instead, this is like the background noise, unfortunately. So we'll see. But anyways, I'll get into the next question here for you guys. What is your dream goal? And sometimes I like to hear this question being asked because sometimes it's good to just voice it and put it out in the world and be like, yeah, this is what I really want to do. And I'm going to have a follow-up question to this. So only answer if you're ready for the follow-up as well. And as with every question that I ask you guys, I wrote down, mine is an illustrated novel, was supposed to be a video game because that's what I thought I would be doing when I was a kid. I thought I'd be working for Square Enix because Final Fantasy X and Kingdom Hearts had such an influence on me. But now it's an illustrated novel. And I realized I can't make that a priority and make tarot a priority at the same time, because the whole purpose of quote unquote making something a priority is that it is a priority. So I have chosen for tarot to be my first priority, and I'm letting my illustrated novel be the one that comes after. And then I can tell I wrote a lot of random stream of consciousness thoughts in this section, and I'm going to read just a few of them and we'll kind of chat about that as you guys are also answering the question. Okay, so I wrote kind of like we said earlier, but I think we need to reiterate this anytime I see this. I like the quote a lot. It's don't talk yourself out of something, try talking yourself into something. I think the way that we talk to ourselves internally can have a huge impact on the results of what we're doing, how fast we're working on it, the efficiency of it, the joy that we have in on it, which doesn't get talked about enough. And then the next one was limit distractions, set better habits for yourself. I think that's something that we have to be more honest with. Are we creating good habits, or are we falling into the trap of like checking social media too much or playing video games too much, and we're not actually working actively towards our goal because time feels limitless? And then one day you wake up and you're like, oh my God, I just spent a whole year doing nothing with my life. And then it gets into like a panic mode because then you guilt yourself over it. And then it can have just a string of negative side effects that you don't want to go down. Because I think it's very easy once you start to tell yourself that you wasted time or that you're guilty of doing these things, all of a sudden the way you perceive yourself is more negative, and then you are harsher on yourself internally. It just is it's a bad cycle you don't want to go down. The next one was being honest with yourself. I think that kind of goes with the distraction point that we were just talking about. But also, are we genuinely working towards our dream goal, or is it just something we like to talk about it? We like people to think that we have something in mind, but we're not actively looking to work on it on a day-to-day basis. Oh, this is, okay. The next post-it note thing I can do is the funnel. Don't focus on the funnel. So what does this mean? I have this whole theory because I was trying to figure out as I was navigating Patreon and YouTube and social media, obviously, and then cons. It was like it was like the things that I felt were essential for me to be an artist in the modern age, which to some degree it is. but I wasn't properly focusing on all of them at once, and I didn't know how to. So the way that I look at it now is a funnel. This funnel represents social media, Patreon, YouTube, cons, online shop. The things that go into the funnel, however you want to visualize this, is literally all just art. So what I mean is when I say don't focus on the funnel, I get so trapped in focusing on this section of the funnel, when in reality, if I would just focus on what was going into the funnel, which is art, this will just happen naturally. So it's almost like an hourglass where if you just keep throwing sand in, it'll go through the funnel because you're like, oh, you know, I finished this piece, let me post it on social media. But if you're doing it the opposite way where you're like, oh, I really need to post something on social media, what should I do? You're already going down the wrong path. You're doing it for the wrong reason. So if you need this reminder, I feel like I should just make a short YouTube video about this, like a 5-minute, don't focus on the funnel. Focus on the art first. All this other stuff, it'll just naturally go into each funnel. But if you don't feed it with the art, you'll have nothing to actually funnel. And this is something that Essentialism had. Oh boy. Okay, there was a quote specifically on this one. Did I not write it down? Oh, no, this isn't really it. But it is, we've lost our ability to filter what is important and what isn't. I like that one a lot. Oh, I don't think I saved it. Or maybe it was in Atomic Habits. Hold on, let me look at this one really quick. No, it's not here either. Anyways, yeah, that's how I feel on that matter. Sorry, like I said, I ramble often, so you'll find me getting off track. Okay, the next point I wrote down was you know yourself best, create workflows that are realistic and work for you. So going back to the actual topic of the stream, focus, is I'm a very objective based person. So I like creating to-do lists. I like box checklists. It's not for everyone. And I realized what helps me is creating smaller goals. So like timing myself for an hour. I have my little timer behind here that I set for an hour, and I'll be like, okay, for the next hour, I'm only going to work on like the tarot deck, we'll say. So in that hour, I'll only work on that piece, because oftentimes if your goal is to finish a tarot card, well, that's vague. And that could require a lot of time, but you're not tracking it or you're not keeping yourself accountable. So it's easy to like let it get lost into, oh, well, I'll work on it later today or whatever it is. But if you have like an active timer going, you feel more like, okay, I have an hour, let's get it done. And the whole idea is you can do anything for an hour, and then you can take a break. But an hour doesn't sound that bad. You're like, okay, I can work on this for an hour. Like let's just do it. Let's get it over with. But then oftentimes what happens is once you start, literally, motivation cycle. Once you start that hour, you're like, okay, I'm now feeling inspired. Actually, I'm not going to take a break after this hour. I'm going to keep going because I'm in that zone. I'm just going to keep going. And then sometimes you get lost in time and it's like 6 hours will go by. You're like, oh boy, have I been sitting here for 6 hours drawing? And other times after the hour, you're like, you know, I'm still not really feeling it. And that's okay. You know what? You put in the hour though. You did more than you were probably going to do. And I think that's something to reflect on and be proud of yourself for. And yeah, you shouldn't be doing that every day where you're only getting 1 hour done if you're looking to do bigger projects. But I think it's also an honest look at, yeah, you're not going to have every day be like super crazy successful day. And allowing yourself the space to, you know, take a step back and be like, you know what, I'm going to do other things that are beneficial to me outside of work, but are beneficial to me as like a person and being alive as a human being, which is like going for a walk or whatever it is. And then the opposite, if you are a feeling type person, so you're not really an objective person, you're very much like, I'll go with the flow. Take a day with grace and honesty. So take it day at a time with grace and honesty. And you'll figure out a schedule that works best for you. Like I've shared my way of like keeping like hour trackers, or I'll make a list on a Google Doc for Josh and I to follow of what we need to get done that day. For some people, they hate that. They see any type of chart and they're like repulsed. It's just not for them. And that's okay. Everyone's going to go about how they attack their goals differently. And I think it's also good to note that how you attack your goals is going to change as you get older. And there's not going to be like one set, this is for the rest of my life way of doing things. And don't guilt yourself for it. There's a big part in Atomic Habits which talks about like if you are having an off day, obviously don't let it turn into a week. So they are very honest of like you don't want it to turn into a week. But if you're having an off day, it's not the end of the world. You're not a failure. You're not, gonna not succeed in whatever you're trying to do. It's just you had an off day. That happens. We're literally human. That's gonna happen. So I'm definitely more objective based, but if you can tell you're more feeling based, then yeah, feel it out. Every time you wake up, be like, how am I going to attack the goals that I want today? And maybe that will be your way of going about it. And then lastly, I put a star next to this one was remember your why. It kind of goes down to the identity thing we were saying earlier, and it comes down to you putting a picture of your younger self on your desk. Is why are you even doing this in the first place? Because if you're creating art just to make money, then that will always be your goal. Your goal will always be, if I am not making money, I'm not making it as an artist. But if your goal and the identity that you've set is, I just want to create things that I love and I want to put them and share, or put it out there in the world and share it with other people, well then that's in my mind, a much better goal, because then it's no longer based on numbers. And it's more based on how much action are you taking that feels fulfilling to you. So yeah, those were ones I have. And then let me read. Oop. Okay, so I'm going to read your guys' dream goal question. A says, having art as a side business, to be able to challenge myself to improve and show off my work while also retaining the ability to step back when I need a break without financial doom looming above me. That is a great answer. Yeah, and it's very doable, especially if it's a side business. It takes away a lot of the pressure. I think sometimes people see the dream of quote unquote making it and making a full-time job. But I'm telling you, most of my close friends that are full-time artists, it's kind of a constant struggle. You're in it for the long game, and it's not an easy answer of like, oh, once you hit this point, then you'll be fine. You won't feel the pressure as much. No, you kind of still feel it all the time. And I think having it as a side gig actually takes a lot of that pressure off, because then it does become more of a fulfilling thing and not a monetary goal thing. So I think that's a great dream goal to have. Ibrov says, honestly, I don't actually know. I am not sure where I want my drawings to take me, but hey, it'd be pretty cool if it becomes a career. But I draw when I want to and not consistently stick to one thing. You know what? That's also true. Like I said, I'm a very objective based person. So in my mind, I'm like, I already have like a few dreams set in line, and I'm just attacking one at a time at this point. But for some people, they just like drawing. And I kind of love that, because it creates this like freedom of not having pressure. And it's like, wherever the wind takes me and however I'm feeling, that's the direction I'm going to go. And I'm sure that as you do it more and more, maybe something will just come up and you're like, oh yeah, this would actually be a cool project for me to work on. And maybe that becomes your dream goal. But if your dream goal is literally just to draw, you kind of already are in the right mindset, because then, as I always say, is like, it's taking action that really matters. And if you're doing that, then you're already winning. You're already succeeding. Barbara says, I used to dream to become a children's book illustrator or drawing my own book at least once, but now I'm focusing on my dream to just do art and attend cons, etc., and meeting fellow artists. Yeah, and I think, dreams will come and go, where maybe that book idea will come back up when you're in a place where you're like, you know what, that's now the goal that I want on the front burner, and maybe it's on the back burner. Or maybe it is an idea that, yeah, you had once in your life, but you're like, that doesn't really sound as fulfilling anymore. Oh, this was actually a good point. Wait, this one I know I just read. it's called, okay, this was an essentialism, but it was called the sunk cost bias. And it's the tendency to continue to invest in something we know is a losing proposition simply because we are too deep in it already. And if I wasn't already, and this is something you would tell yourself, if I wasn't already so invested in this project, how much would I invest in it right now? And to admit failure or to cut losses shows wisdom, not defeat. I really like that because I think for some of us, we feel this pressure of like, oh, we've been talking about this project or idea for so long. I now have built up an expectation that if I don't do it, I'm a failure. But actually, if you were able to admit to other people like, no, you know what? I thought this is something that I wanted, but it's actually not. And now I'm working in this other field because this is actually where I believe I want to go and not in that direction that I was so deep in before. So yeah, Elena says, probably a bit different to some. My dream goal is just to never stop making art, never give up on it or think it's not worth the time it takes. That, like I said, yeah, you already made it. You're beautiful. That's a wonderful mindset to have. And as long as you keep creating art and it's fulfilling to you and you feel like that's what gives you joy, you're already winning. Barbara says, also creating my own tarot deck or playing cards. I would recommend not making a tarot deck. I know you're already working on the mermaid deck, so maybe it doesn't apply to you as much. But to other people listening, it is a lot of work. It is more work than I initially gathered it would be. So only do a tarot deck if you really are passionate about it and you really think that this would be something you would enjoy. Thankfully, I actually really like tarot, so it's been easy for me to talk myself back into it. But man, in the 2022 and 2023 era, I realized this is going to take a lot of my life. And do I really want a good chunk of my 30s to be dedicated to a project that's technically not an original IP and it's not a story that I created? It's just kind of interpretation of someone else's story. And I think that was like a hard pill for me to swallow. I almost wish I would have started with an oracle deck and then see if I enjoyed that process enough to make my own tarot. But after doing a lot of soul searching, yes, this is the path I want to be down, and I'm full gun ho. Playing card deck, though, on the other hand, I recommend everyone doing. If you want to make money as an artist, this has been consistently one of our best-selling items at our convention booths, at our online store, since mid-2020, and it is 2025. So this product has had the opposite of a diminishing return. It has had the most return because it keeps just performing well. And I think it's because it's a practical item. Everyone kind of knows what a card deck is already. And not only are there card deck collectors out there, but you'll have casual people that are like, oh, I play cards every now and then or with my family in the holidays. This would be a cool deck to play with, or this would be a good gift. So I recommend everyone make a illustrated playing card deck. If you have the time to do so or any type of interest, I would highly, 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 highly recommend it. And then lastly, Houdini Bob says, as a newbie to art, to get what's in my mind's eye to paper. These are great goals. You guys kind of got past the trick question that I was going to ask. So I don't even think I'm going to ask it. I think you guys already got it. It's literally just creating and basically if you are taking action to follow those dreams, you're already succeeding. So you guys already passed my trick question. I don't need to ask it. Okay, and I think like I have a few other notes on it, but honestly, I'm going to focus for the next, we'll go a little over time. We'll say like 20, 5 more minutes here because I'm going to really try to focus on the drawing. So if you guys have any last minute questions, let me know, especially about focus specifically. And actually, I'll say one more final point about focus before I open the questions up, but just make sure you put @vonnart before that question. Okay, so my final thoughts on focus is we have to be honest with ourselves. Are we working on the things we want to actually pursue, or are we filling ourselves with busy work? I noticed I was doing that a lot in, I want to say 2022. That was my bad year, where it'd be like emails or things. I would make them a priority because I thought they were quote unquote essential, but especially after reading that book, I realized a lot of what I had on my plate that I thought was essential actually was just not at all. And the only thing that really is essential, and I've been keeping it in mind when I think about what I'm fulfilling or what I'm filling my days with, is drawing. if I am doing art, if I'm actually in the act of drawing itself, that is a higher priority. That is essential. Everything else is secondary to some degree. But I need to be drawing every day, because if I get sidetracked with the business side of things, or like ordering stuff for cons or whatever it is, if that fills up too much of my days and it turns into weeks where I'm not even drawing, I'm just focusing on things that aren't drawing, I'm not going to be happy, which will then in turn make worse art, which will make me feel less motivated. It's this whole spiral. So I want to make sure that I am focusing on creating art first and foremost. So it's being honest with myself. So that's my first point. And kind of going back to what we said about the motivation circle, realizing that taking action is actually the first step in getting motivated, inspired, which will result in results. So that's important. And then being aware of how you're spending your time on a daily basis. And this is outside of actually doing the art, but like when you are meandering through either your workplace or your house, are you constantly having a screen in front of you? Do you feel like you can't be bored anymore? You constantly need to be amused or entertained to just get through your day? And then I think taking a more honest and sometimes vulnerable look at, am I just distracting myself because it's easier to be amused than to live with who I am? And I think that's kind of a personal one that a lot of people I think struggle with, or at least when I talk to artists on how their day-to-day is, they often get trapped in the cycle of distracting themselves because at least it feels busy. And there's a difference between taking action and being busy. I think that's a very important distinction. And oftentimes we feel like we did a lot in a day, but doing a lot is actually like answering emails, watching a couple of YouTube videos, getting distracted, playing Pokemon TCG on our phone for a little while, scrolling Pinterest. It feels like we did a lot, but it's just it's busy, sure, but you're not actually taking action. And I think taking a more critical look at what we're doing and is it actually essential to our goals? So that was my second point with focus. And the third point is to create an environment that is conducive for you to take those actions. So maybe you do need to put your phone in another room while you're working. Maybe you do need to hide those video game consoles or unplug them every time you finish so that it's not so easily available or readily available for you to be tempted by them. And then not only your environment, but then the people you surround yourself with. Are you surrounded with people that are encouraging and are hype people, and you feel like you can give them that same in return? Or do you feel this invisible peer pressure to hit a standard just for them, and you're not really doing the work for yourself as much anymore? So that will help if you can like kind of do some spring cleaning, not only physically in your environment, but maybe in your friend group or those you surround yourself with, and even if it's family. I mean, I'm a big family person, but I do think at some point, if you find your family is actually net negative and they're not supportive and you are recognizing that, I think it's okay to set boundaries. I mean, not to use buzzwords, but I think setting boundaries in a way where it's like, hey, I will be there for you. I love you, but I need to focus on myself for a little while. And I need these goals to be given the time and energy that they need right now. And I need you to be either accepting of that, or we're going to have somewhat of an issue. And I think just being upfront about it. So yeah, I think those are my main 3 points. Let's see if I wrote any other. Make it harder for distractions. Yep. Oh, okay. There are these. I'm a big quote person, if you couldn't tell by now. There was one that read, your actions reveal your true motivations. I love that one because, yeah, people can talk about what they want to work on or their dream projects all they want, but if you're not seeing their actions, what you're really seeing is you just like someone liking the praise of whatever their idea is without having to do any of the work for it. I've been guilty of this many times in the past, so that's why I'm trying to be better as I move forward in my 30s with that, but just something to be aware of. And then, this one I like too. We live in delayed return environments, but we're built personally for immediate return. It's like our brain loves dopamine and like instant gratification, but we have to remember that we have to limit those because those are such a trap and can lead to maybe short-term gains, but long-term, we're actually hurting ourselves. Okay, and then the last thing I'll say, and then I'll open it up to you guys, is without reflection, we can make excuses, create rationalizations, and lie to ourselves. And I like that one a lot because I noticed whenever I am talking about bigger projects or things aren't getting done that I said would get done, I'm kind of creating a lie narration for me to follow, and I'm hoping other people will too. But people can see through it. People will see the actions you're taking, and if you over the years keep giving excuses or complaining about why you're not getting things done, eventually the common denominator is going to be you. And I think you have to take a harsh look in the mirror and be like, I am the problem. I'm Taylor Swift. I'm the problem. And I need to recognize if I want to actually work on my goals, I need to like sit down, maybe journal for a week and like look at how can I actually achieve these goals in a way that is actionable. So I like to write down what I can do to achieve those goals. So like right now for tarot, it's create one tarot thumbnail every week with initial sketches, and then the following week will be the penciling and finishing it. And they're very like cut dry, actionable. You know, I can see the progress happening. And this is mostly when we don't have conventions for the week. But like next week we don't have a con, so guess what I'm going to be doing on Monday? I'm going to thumbnail and start penciling out my tarot card, and then the following week it should be finished. And like I just know this about myself. I know that that is the actions I can take, and I know how long it usually takes me to do something in an honest way. So that's what I'm going to be doing. Okay. Let's see here. Now I'm going to see what any other questions you guys have. So if you have any questions, just put @vonnart, or if you even have a point you want to say, maybe you want to share something with the rest of the listeners here that are like, hey, I have a great point about focus that I want other people to hear. Oh my gosh, Dark Lady of the Lullaby. My goal is to be able to draw things that don't look terrible. You'll get there, and don't be so harsh on yourself. I always tell people, if you can see that something looks wrong, like right now I can tell this eye looks a little janky. After the stream, I'm going to really attack it and improve it. But the ability to discern that something looks wrong is the first step, because that's you're training your eye to see problems, and then the next step is finding the solutions. I feel like I've said a lot this stream, but I really do find that to be such an important thing. Okay, let's see here. Ella says, all I know that is that art will forever be my first love. It doesn't matter if I'm in a tough place with my art or mental health. I'll always come back to art no matter what. Yeah, I feel the same way. It's my form of therapy. It's my meditation. I always feel better after I draw. Even if I don't have the best drawing day, like sometimes I'll guilt myself over that stupid expectation that I sometimes place on myself. But honestly, 90% of the time, I always feel better after I draw. Elena says, is it just me, but I think it's iconic, or I think you meant ironic, that this is a stream on focus, and I've been very unfocused on painting. I got a tiny bit done, which is my goal, but I focused on what Tim has been saying, though. Same boat. I thought I would have this finished no problem by the end of 2 hours because I did the initial drawing, or the thumbnail underdrawing, but I got way too sidelined. I think that's why I got to change up these streams, where maybe the drawing streams will be more on just drawing, and whatever topics come out, we'll just explore more. And maybe some of these like confidence and focus or habits, whatever it is, maybe I should just make separate videos that are like 20 minutes long, that are just condensed, rather than a 2-hour long stream that people are like, ugh, but what's the too long didn't read version of this? And that way I can just focus on drawing on these weekly live streams, and then the really heavy topics that I want to explore on a much deeper level, we can have pre-recorded, and that way we can cut out all the excess and me just ranting, maybe for like 10 minutes on something that could have easily been said in 3 sentences. Let's see here again. Ivy says, it's interesting shifting to a more serious business mindset, taking on bigger projects and collections and things. It's definitely come with time. Yeah, I remember thinking when I first got into art, and mind you, this is 12 years ago that I started doing cons-ish, or 11 years, and then I started doing the online shop shortly after. no one tells you how many hats you're going to have to be wearing if you want to make it as an artist, either full time or even part time to some degree. Where nowadays in 2025, you have to wear the hat of being an artist first and foremost. That should be the first one. But then it's like social media manager, video editor if you're doing short form content or long form content, um, Etsy shop, website owner, and a ship department. If you're doing conventions, you have to do all the ordering of prints and making sure your inventory is stocked. You got to make sure that if you're making new products, you have to be then corresponding with people and having that back and forth. If you're making books, like that's a whole investment in itself. And then you have to do maybe a Kickstarter. All of a sudden, oh, I have to learn Kickstarter. And it's funny how easy it is to get sidetracked with everything that's not art to be an artist. So that's why I try to remind people, not only with these streams, but even the friends in my personal life, focus on the art first. Everything else will be a funnel. Actually, I should make this video. This should be like a 5-minute quick video, but it really is focus on the art first and everything else will be secondary, because it's so easy to take one of those secondary hats, put it on, and you feel trapped. I get that when I have to do emails or correspondence with a lot of people at the same time. Like for the Kickstarters, I not only had to make the books, I had to do the custom packaging, the tissues that we wrap them in, and doing the restocking of the coins and prints for the reorder, and then the Kickstarter people themselves I was corresponding with. So all of a sudden I was like in correspondence mode, and that's the hat that I had on for like 2 months. And then I was like, oh, I'm miserable because this hat is too tight. It does not fit me perfectly. I want to put the art one back on. And yes, you will have to put on different hats throughout your career as if you want to make it as an artist, but you just have to make sure that the art one is the main one that you're wearing most of the time. Let's see, what do we got here? Felix says, can we maybe do live stream interviews again? Maybe Audrey Ben-Jamison. Absolutely. I know she would want, I'll ask her, because we could even do that soon. I know for sure I'm going to get Inkwell on here just because I've been on his so many times. I feel like it's definitely time for me to interview him, and we have such a joking manner anyway, so I'm sure he'll like doing it. So yeah, that is definitely something I can bring back. Abrav says, I have a slight tangent question. How do the different pencils help? Oh, okay. H pencils, so on the scale of hardness, there's HB. Imagine that's in the middle. Actually, do I have an HB? Okay, this is HB. This is in the middle of hardness, which is how dark, essentially, the pencils can go. On one side, this is an H pencil, so it'll go up in value. So it'll be like 2H, this is a 3H, 4H, 5H, so on, so on. And then on the opposite side, it'll be 2B, 4B, all those. So the darker or the higher the B, the darker the pencil will be, and the higher the H, the lighter the pencil will be. The thing that's nice about the higher H pencils is they erase very easily. So like if I made marks like this on the paper, I actually don't want to do the 2B. You know what? Maybe I'll do it on a Post-it note. So I did the 2B. You can immediately see the darkness difference between the two. But the thing is, if I take my kneaded eraser, the 2H basically lifts completely to the paper texture color, which is like a neutral white, obviously. But if I do that with the 2B, see how there's still a residue of that like graphite that's now sunk into the paper textures? This can be hard to get out, or actually almost impossible. So I used to mostly start with a H pencil, but as I become more confident, I'm now working with HB pencils, which is dead in the middle. But for like streaming, I probably will still work with lighter pencils until I get comfortable streaming and talking again, because I have that ability to erase. But because for a stream like this, it's so focused on I need the reference image or the final result to look like a reference image. I probably should have done something different for the stream today, but you know what? We're here, no regrets, and I learned something today. That's a whole nother stream we could talk about, but I like the idea that nothing is actually a failure. It's just a learning opportunity. And I think a good example for me, not to tangent too much, but I made tarot pins. I made like the ace of each one, and there were 4 of them of each suit. And I was like, oh, these tarot pins are going to do really well because I've seen so much interest in my tarot deck. So I made, I think, 500 of each pin, and it ended up being like 8 grand, or it was something absorbent because I made them bigger and they're dual metal plated. So half of it is like an antique gold, half of it is antique silver where the hand is. And they bombed. They did so bad that I took them off my convention route for a little while, and I'm like saving them for the actual tarot deck Kickstarter now. But it was a very good learning opportunity of this is not what people want, and I overestimated the value of these, and I learned from it. I'm not going to be doing that ever again. So being an artist and making it as a full-time career is a constant trial and tribulation, experimenting and learning from it. And if you ever sense that you're going through a failure moment, try not to be too harsh on yourself. And if you can, get into the mindset quickly of, I can learn something from this. And yes, it was a financial blow when I made these pins, especially we were like in the thick of COVID and all the cons were canceled. So like I needed these to succeed to some degree. But yeah, they failed and we had to go through it and we dealt with the consequences. But you know what? The only way that you can actually fail, actually, this is a quote I definitely live by. The only way you can actually fail is if you stop trying. And I really, really do believe that. And especially if you're trying to make it as an independent artist financially, you have to spend a nickel to make a dime. And that's been another thing that's stuck with me since I've started 12 years ago. So I'm never nervous about spending money if I see it as an investment and it's a calculated risk. So try not to just risk it on things that aren't calculated. I try now to spend money on products or whatever it might be that are calculated risks. That way it feels more like I'm not just guessing if this will work. And the tarot pins were just a great example of I was guessing and it plummeted. And you know what? That's going to happen too from time to time. And you just can't take it as like this huge failure. And now I'm a failure because that failed, blah, blah. Anyways, I'll keep moving on. Eyebrow says, oh no, that was the one on pencils. Yes. Ivy says, he are in a little bit of money problem right now. Oh, sorry, you weren't taking me. Yes, we were in a little bit of money problem. Japan was unexpected. We were invited by Sang and Dustin. So like that was 6 grand. And then we got hit with the tariffs that just got implemented. That was an extra 4 grand because we have 3,000 giant books coming from China. And yeah, we got hit with that tariff. Well, guess what? That 10 grand collectively, I did not save up properly in the summer, fall. So it was like, okay, we just have to eat these costs and then we'll have to deal with them. And I think it was a good learning opportunity for me to realize I need enough money saved on the back end where if someone invites us on a trip somewhere around the world that's like, you know what, this could be a once in a lifetime experience, I won't guilt myself for not having saved for it properly. So, you know, give and take. But I think this year's our year of saving and finding more stability financially because mentally I feel the best I've ever been. So I'm like, okay, the finances are just going to catch up because now we're actually putting things into effect that'll help that. Okay, here we are. Candor says, I know we are so close to the end of the stream, but I really should sleep. It was a wonderful stream and super insightful and encouraging. Thank you so much for your time. Have a wonderful day. Well, thank you, Candor. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I didn't get a lot done on the drawing side of things, but it's always a good conversation. I felt like I was rambling a lot to myself, so I'm sorry to those who are maybe new to these streams. I'm hoping they'll be a little less rambly in the future. But like I said, returning to streaming, there's always going to be a little few speed bumps here and there. And me just recognizing what do these streams look like moving forward. And maybe some of this should be pre-recorded content, especially if, like on a topic like today, I probably should have just had a presentation style look at it. I know like actually back in the day when I did these type of streams, I would just have Photoshop open and I would draw graphs or I would have them like pre-drawn and I would just pull them up on different layers when I was talking about them. So maybe that would be better than like me try to do this unrelated drawing that isn't about focus, but it's on something I wanted to draw anyways. So who knows? Maybe that will be the actual change in the coming days. Kendra says, hearing this, you and Josh are always welcome in Korea. I'd be interested in going to Korea. I think the next place, we definitely want to go on more of like a Euro trip. I would love to go to, obviously, Germany to see you guys in Dokumi, but that might have to wait till next year. And then we have one friend, Jonathan Liddell, who wants us to come to Scotland really bad. And I think that would be really fun. And then obviously, Josh and I got married last year, but we haven't taken our honeymoon yet. And we really want to go, well, I really want to go to Italy. So we're doing, eventually we want to save up for 2 trips because we're not having kids. So like now's our time where we can spend some money. He wants to go to Disney and I want to go to Italy. So we're going to like try to make both of those happen, hopefully next year. And that will be the goal. And I think Italy more so for like the beauty of the city, the architecture, the museums. And I just feel like just being there will be inspiring to some degree. And then obviously Disney, I think for Josh, is just more of like a fun thing. So yeah. Okay, I think we're going to cut it off in like 5 minutes. Let me see if I can get a little bit more done before we cut this off. I just want to thank you all for coming today. I know today was very rambly and I jumped around quite a bit. I just think I had a lot to say about focus, but it felt a little unfocused. But hey, it's a learning experience. We're coming back to streaming. That's going to happen. And I'm just excited to keep doing more of these. So yeah, I guess I can give my final notes of if you aren't already on the Discord server, it's free to join. There's a link below. And the whole reason I even am drawing this is for our monthly challenge that is currently happening for March, which is the likeness challenge. And these I definitely check on. So if you participate, I will definitely look at them. And oftentimes I'll get feedback. And I already know what next month's going to be. And we're just going to keep having these on a monthly basis. And then besides that, honestly, or I guess if any of you are near the Indiana area and are going to the Comic-Con this weekend, Josh and I will be there. We're going to leave tomorrow, and I'll share with you guys the booth setup and everything on the Discord. But I'm hoping to get a new coin done. Oh, actually, that's what I can show you guys. That's what I'll end the stream with. Hold on. Josh, if you can hear me, can you grab the iPad? I believe it's charging in the front room. And then on top of that, here is the drawing I finished from last week's stream. Here's a little pumpkin guy holding the match. So I definitely took some time that night to like finish him up, but this is finally done. And then also our new custom boxes came in for the art book. So these are exciting because it fits the new art book like perfectly. And we have 6,000, or not 6,000. I think we have 3,000 of them in the garage right now. So next week we got to take them downstairs, but we're one step closer to getting those books shipped out to everyone. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, I had a Kickstarter for my art book. It is 11 years worth of my work. It's a very thick, it's a very heavy dual action as a workout object book. And it will be shipped out at the beginning of next month. And it's just literally 400 pages of my art through the last 11 years. Very excited about it, and it'll be on our shop in late May. So if you missed the Kickstarter or are interested in looking what this is, yeah, late May is when we're hoping to get it up on the shop. I'm going to finish this drawing after the stream when I can just put on some music and really focus. Hey, keyword for the stream. I can focus on it, and I'll share the results later tonight. Okay, and then lastly, Candor says, read Ella's response about the on-site mod meeting. Oh, she can't take people. Oh, on your phone you can't take people? That's interesting. Okay, where is what she's talking about? Hold on. Oh, Ella says, I think the stream was less on how to focus right now, but how to focus your life on the things that matters. I didn't expect it, but I needed this today. Yeah, I really do believe like oftentimes if we're struggling with like our art or feeling like we're not having a time to do it, it's often because we're so distracted in our personal lives, and then we need to evaluate Okay, what's essential, what's not. And I'm a big believer in reflecting and like even if maybe journaling is something that could help you, but I know when I'm evaluating what I'm doing, it's very easy for me to cut things that are not essential out. And I hope that's a skill set I can pass on to you guys if you feel like you're overwhelmed with things that aren't beneficial to your goals. And you're like, man, I feel so like I'm not getting anything done, but I feel busy. You have to make distinctions between am I doing busy work or am I taking action? So hopefully that will help. Oh, Jonathan's here. Hello, Jonathan. We were just mentioning you. Yeah, we want to come to Scotland to visit you. And Barbara, oh yes, that is what I'm hoping Josh can give me. Hey, Josh. I think could you bring me my iPad? Hopefully you can hear me. But yeah, I can give you guys a little sneak peek at the new coin that I'm making before we cut this off. I've just been really enjoying making coins, and I had this cheeky idea of a heads and a tails being a very literal interpretation of heads and tails. So I finished the heads side yesterday, and I'm hoping to finish the coins one or the tails one today so I can send it off.
I'm in my pajamas.
Josh is in his work attire today.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. I'm going to show him the sneak peek.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, so here is the heads. So yeah, like I said, very literal interpretation. I was working on this yesterday with Audrey and Babs, and initially I had the cat heads blacked out. I wonder if I have a saved copy of that one. Oh, I don't think I do. But then I realized because they're coins, wherever it's white will be raised and wherever it's black will be recessed. So even though it would be textural, I guess it would be stimulating and like, oh, it's fun to rub your thumb over the surface of the coin, but like it wouldn't read well. So I made all the cats white so that they would stand up on the coin. And then for the tails, oh boy. This one's a little more difficult, but today I have to finish this as well and send it off. So here's where we're at with the tails. Like I said, very rough. I'm still figuring out how to make it still read for sure like tails and not just a bunch of squiggles or like worms. So this will be interesting. So yeah, that's what I'm working on, and I think we're good now. So I got to figure out how I want to end these streams, but for now I'll just say thank you for coming to join me today on this live stream. I hope you learned or maybe picked something up that can be not only relatable, but then applied to your life. I just want you to know that you are enough. I really want to repeat the mantra of you are enough. If you are taking action, you're on a beautiful path. You are on the right path, and what you do matters. And I think we need to say that more. So I'm going to hopefully open and end with that kind of a saying. And I hope you guys actually feel it, because I really do believe it. I'm a very big believer in like artists helping artists. So I want to be that there for you guys. So yeah, thank you all for coming, and hopefully we'll see you next week. Thank you, everyone. Okay, now we'll cut it off. And like I said, I'll post this later on the Discord so you can see what the final results look like. All right, take care, everyone.